BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions here, and for Asian American Pacific Islander Month. Well, I shouldn't have been lazy with the first video I recorded late because I found out that the Trump administration's initial recession of harmful executive orders and actions eliminated federal recognition of Asian American Month, and the governmental office of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. And I already had doubts about talking and making half of my content focus on Asian-related topics this month. But now that I have the rest of the script down, it's about time I just go all out and make these scripts ASAP. So let's go with the easiest talking point and the one that one of you guys voted on today. The movie that set 2018 on fire with people still wondering where the heck that sequel is. Crazy Rich Asians. A movie with a lot of love, detractors, and more, because doing background information for this video took me a while, and I hope this information and it will surprise even you, because it definitely did for me. So let's get started. So here's something people don't know. Crazy Rich Asians originally started as a book that was released in 2013, written by Kevin Kwan, who eventually served as executive producer. For the most part, the adaptation follows the first book, titled Crazy Rich Asians. The film was directed by John Chu, had two co-writers who we'll definitely talk about later, and he sold the film rights for $1, but in exchange for conditions for the rights, he had to serve as executive producer of the film with near total creative control, which I have a lot of respect for him for doing. Number two, and for the reason you all clicked on this video, yes, potential producers were worried about the film having too many Asians in the cast, so they had initially requested Rachel be turned into a white woman in order to make her more relatable to American audiences, and Kevin Kwan had to talk with and convince them otherwise, which led to Constance Wu getting cast. He said it himself. That was the strategy, he remembers. They wanted to change the heroine into a white girl. I was like, well, you missed the point completely. I said, no thank you. Kwan also said a film version of the story would be against typical Hollywood thinking because when he went to Texas at a book club of white women and told them about what happened, they were like, what makes these people think that all we want to do is see the same white actors or actresses on screen? To hear that reaction really confirmed for me what the audience wanted. Heck, he even found producers who had the same goals. The Hunger Games producer Nina Jacobson and her producing partner Brad Simpson to bring the book to the big screen. Plus, he pointed out whitewashing characters may finally be seen as a negative and not wanting a necessity of that trope to exist. And given that a top producer in Hollywood coming to him wanting to make this movie and wanting to do it right, if he felt like they're finally seeing the importance of this. Fact number 3. Michelle Yeoh was unimpressed by the original emerald ring Eleanor wore that Nick used to propose to Rachel, so she ended up using a ring from her own jewelry collection to replace it. Fact 4. This movie was Henry Golden's first acting gig. While he was on screen before, he was a travel host for BBC and Discovery Channel Asia, like Nick was, which was referenced in the movie when Nick introduced Rachel to the island. Fact number 5. Kevin Kwan originally wanted Nancy Wan, his distant cousin and veteran of Flower Drum Song and World of Susie Wong, as Nick Sama. Fact number 6. Jamie Chung was turned down for an unspecified role for not being ethnically Chinese, though it was later turned out because the casting call was looking for Chinese tryouts first, then went for East and Southeastern Asians as a secondary choice. Shucks too, because Jamie Chung is a good actress who really deserves more respect. Fact number 7. Nick struggling through the plane wasn't originally the ending of Crazy Rich Asians. The original ending involved him putting down a newspaper to reveal he was sitting next to Rachel, but they figured that was too low-key, so they threw the idea of Nick struggling through the plane very quickly. One is more directly funny, not gonna lie, though the subtlety of him being next to her would also be funny. Maybe if they pushed it as him adjusting his voice so she couldn't tell it was him, then revealing it would have been much more funnier. Fact number 8. Crazy Rich Asians didn't do so well in Japan because there are already tons of stories that tackle the premise of a lower class woman entering the elite and high class society where her rich boyfriend came from, and that Japanese people really care about big names in Hollywood as opposed to Crazy Rich Asians starring most people they aren't familiar with. Fact number 9. China also didn't receive the film that well. Some considered it releasing late in November wasn't a good choice. Criticism of the film being bland due to Cinderella-style cliches pretty often used in Chinese soap operas, and there were some who felt the movie was saying that Chinese culture was inferior to American culture. Not my place to talk about whether or not I agree, but it's interesting to learn that it wasn't well received. Number 10. This is the first Hollywood movie with an all-Asian cast in a modern setting since the Joy Luck Club back in 1993, in over 25 years. Wow. 12. This is not a fun fact, more of a fact, but Crazy Rich Asians had two writers, co-writers if you will, Adele Lim, who is Asian and female, and Peter Chiarelli, who is white and male. Unfortunately, despite the film being female-oriented, Adele Lee quit the sequel because she found out there was a huge great pay disparity between her and Peter. For reference, she was paid $110,000, which seems like a lot, right? So how much was Peter getting paid? $800,000 to $1 million. Allegedly, Peter offered a pay cut, but the damage had already been done. Number 13. Warner Brothers tried defending that offer by pointing out there was a difference in experience between the two. However, Peter had only worked on celebrity scandals from Funny or Die, Now You See Me Too, and The Proposal. All films and series that I saw were mostly well received, though I think one had a lower score. Meanwhile, she had script coordinating, English dub writing, story editing, co-producing, supervising producer, consulting producer, and writing credits on shows ranging from Xena Warrior Princess to Digimon Digital Monsters, One Tree Hill, Life on Mars, Missing, Starcrossed, Reign, and Dynasty, all before she became a writer on the movie. Number 14. Harry Shum Jr.'s role in the movie had an extra scene with Gemma Chan, where his character, Charlie Wu, was dancing with her character, Astrid, but the director didn't want the audience thinking Astrid's motive for leaving her then husband Michael involved Charlie, so they cut the dance scene despite filming it and saved his appearance as a stinger for the sequel. Fact number 15. Kevin Kwan ended up with a few outdated elements about Singapore for the film. His family had left the country in the 80s, so some references he makes in the books are quite dated. Understandable. For example, there was a Mandarin-speaking Singaporean academy named Nanyang. However, it merged with another college to form the Nanyang Technological University, which is an English-speaking institution with a diverse student body. 16. So, why isn't there a Crazy Rich Asians 2? Can't they just get the cast back? Well, according to director John M. Chu, there's issues with them trying to get a script that can compare to the first film. And in his own words, I always promise the cast I will not bring them back unless we get a script that's better and has as much urgency as the first movie. We just haven't gotten there yet. 17. Chu also said despite the similarities between the first book and the first movie, there's a lot of shifting architecturally, so it's not going to be a straight translation for making a second film. And there are characters that you want to see you in the movie that are part of the book. We've done some versions and it's never quite hit. Basically, he understands that there's a high bar for them to come back to make a great second film, but he doesn't want to put the audience through that unless they feel like the script is ready for the audience to enjoy. Fact number 18. Some of you may have heard that Crazy Rich Asians is in development to have a TV series, and turns out Adele Lim is returning for that as executive producer via her production company called 100 Tigers. Chu's production company, Electric Somewhere, and under the Color Force banner. There's no news on if the same actresses and actors are returning, though it's likely an adaptation of the first book, but with more time for everything to be fleshed out, especially since the movie had to cut corners with some things that they didn't fully adapt. 19. Fact number. Ronnie Cheng, who most of you know as a correspondent on The Late Show with both Trevor Noah and I believe Jon Stewart, was born in Malaysia but spent 10 years growing up in Singapore. And he actually signed up for this movie since he joked he'd only be able to do the Singaporean/Malaysian accent based on how he grew up. And 20. Finally, despite the movie being set in Singapore, many scenes were shot in its neighboring country of Malaysia. The Young family mansion had a luxury hotel in Malaysia as a set since the private estate described in the book was mostly disappeared. The Mahjong parlor was shot inside the Siang Fat Tse mansion in Penang, Malaysia, and even the Samsara Island for the bachelorette party was also filmed in Malaysia. You know what, I'll be nice and even throw in a bonus one. Brenda Song was denied an audition, which she claimed was because she was Asian enough, well, wasn't Asian enough, which is really weird given she played the Asian rich girl London Tipton for years on Sweet Life on Deck and Sweet Life with Zack and Cody. But Chu disputed those claims because he already knew who she was. It's hinted she was considered for a role but not chosen, though it wouldn't surprise me if it's because he wanted more unknown stars mixed in with using older ones for talent. So yeah, these are 20/21 fun facts about Crazy Rich Asians. And it's starting proof I need to always keep revising and checking my script because the voice modulator I use to type half of the script changed Crazy Rich Asians to rotation. And that gets really aggravating when you put that much work into a script and then you end up saying something you didn't even plan to say or write. Sometimes shortcuts are not the easy solution in life, just how like taking shortcuts by adding a white person to a film about Asian people and making said white person the main character instead of just trusting people to have an Asian lead and follow their story and make the audience sympathize and understand them is more important. Which I am so glad they actually managed to avoid because Chu fought for his vision of the film. So yeah, tell me what you all thought. What was your most surprising fun fact? Let me know in the comments below. And BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, signing. Actually, before I sign off, because this is Asian History Month, I have a question for you. Would you guys like me to switch between topics, aka 1 minute I talk about something either Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Naruto or Kamen Rider related, and then talk about another Asian fun fact, or would you like me to go in order for a series of topics and then move into another topic after those series of videos are done? Please let me know. Any feedback from you guys is always appreciated, and I thank you all for getting this far. So properly, BIP Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.